Well, we'll see what old Aaron Rodgers has up his sleeve, if they're going to continue to do what they've done and run the football, try to run this clock down some more.
Only the third time the Packers have had the ball in this second half. And Rodgers is he's looking at the official as he's dragged down by the jersey. He was looking for a horse collar call and doesn't get it as Zach Allen makes the play. Think he's not aware of everything going on around him?
Well, you know, you got to be up a lot higher in order for it to be a horse collar, but I do like that before he's even down officially, he's looking for a call.
His mind just works a little bit faster than most people's. It's crazy. 2nd and 10. That goes down as a sack for Zach Allen, his 2nd of the year. Quick throw. Aaron Jones cuts back. Man, he's tough to bring down. He gets 9.5. Brought down by Murphy and Jalen Thompson. 3rd and 1.
Yeah, just little things defensively. Vance Joseph, they play soft coverage, and so you get a guy into the flat. Nobody then takes that flat. They get caught with their eyes inside. And then what, you know, should have been just a minimal gain is a 9-yard gain and presents now a 3rd and 1.
A.J. Dillon back there with Rodgers. Rodgers keeps. He hits DeGuara, the tight end. And a nice catch and run by the 2nd-year pro out of Cincinnati. Gain of 11.
Not sure it would have mattered much, but Cobb's on the inside, and he's going to run a little bit of a pick. But from where the defender was coming from in order to try to make a play, he was a little late getting there. It's Jordan Hicks who initially was going to try to go over the top, but he was so far inside. But then with Cobb running interference, it became even easier than would have been anyway.
Moving the ball around. 7 completions to wide receivers, 5 to tight ends, 7 to the backs. The running games worked so well, that little play action worked. And DeGuara, the easy pitch and catch for the first down. Here's Winfrey. He's got another first down. Juwan Winfrey in his 2nd year out of Colorado, getting his first taste of some real action.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually getting some balls thrown in his direction. You know, I mean, he came into the game, and as I said at the time, he hadn't even been targeted. Forget catching a ball. He hadn't even been targeted. And so throwing that right there, you can just tell that Rodgers is gaining some confidence in him, but pretty soft coverage for the route that he's running.
Here's Dillon. Tanner Vallejo went for a little bit of a ride, a gain of 4.
They just have continually been able to stay ahead of the chains. You know, I mean, they're getting positive yards when they had the sack on Rodgers there on first down. Then on the next play, they are able to pick up 9 yards, 10 yards, and make it a short 3rd and 1. Here on first down, they pick up 4 yards. So they've constantly stayed ahead, and it opens up a whole lot of things for Matt LaFleur.
Quick throw. There he is. Ball's out. And they're going to call that a catch fumble, at least initially, as Winfrey
will come back to the spot of the fumble. 3rd down.
They're going to move it back to the spot of the fumble as Marco Wilson was there to help knock it out.
Well, if this ball doesn't get knocked out, it might be a touchdown, because there was nobody left back there in order to come up and make a play. That was best case scenario for Arizona.
Forward fumble out of bounds, always goes back to the spot of the fumble. Brings up 3rd and 2. Timeout.
Timeout. Green Bay. Their 2nd of the half.
Well, Sunday it's a big doubleheader on Fox. I think it's a big triple header. First, the 49ers battle the Bears or other regional action, then America's Game of the Week. Tom Brady leads the Bucs against Alvin Kamara coming off a big game, and the Saints all on Fox and the Fox Sports app. Check local listings for the games in your area. CBS has Steelers and Browns. Troy, you and Joe Davis, Aaron and Tom will have the Bucs and Saints. Then Dak Prescott, the Cowboys against the Vikings on Sunday night. That's on NBC, and the Giants and Chiefs on ESPN Monday night.
Yeah, and Joe Buck and John Smoltz
there you
on the triple header. I got you. I heard you.
You're listening.
Come on, Daddy.
That'll be Game 5 of the World Series. All right, 3rd and 2. Jones gets it. Big conversion by Green Bay on 3rd and 2, and they just hand it off and pick it up. This offensive line has done a nice job.
Well, they really have, and then Aaron Jones, this is really good by him. Just watch the moves that he makes after he gets the ball in his hands. He shows patience, and he's able to cut the vision, and he sees that crease right there, and then he goes and takes it. The offensive line's done a good job. There's some backs. Aaron Jones not one of them, but there's some backs in this league that would have ran right into the center and guard, and it would have gone nowhere. But Aaron Jones is a different kind of back. Does a great job showing some patience, finding the hole, picking it up.
Wow, they have to spend their last time out. Mention this is just the 3rd time the Packers have had the ball this half. They had the 14-yard touchdown drive after the interception, and then their season-long 91-yard touchdown drive the last time they had it, and here they are with a 1st and 10. We'll welcome you back inside the broadcast booth. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman, and Matt LaFleur has called a fantastic game. And the ground game, what a difference from Sunday against Washington.
It's been big in this game, there's no question. I think that the way that Aaron Rodgers has played it has been brilliant as well. Just taking what they give him and not forcing the ball. Only a couple times have they even thrown it beyond 20 yards. I mean, just a lot of quick passing. Like I said, stay ahead of the game, stay ahead of the chains. And right now, for this defense that's been so good this year in the second half, talk about needing to come up with something. This is the time.
Packers are out of timeout, so they will not be able to challenge going forward. Might not have to. Aaron Jones, another big run. 16 yards for number 33.
Billy Turner out there at right tackle. He seals the edge. They get everybody moving, and then Aaron Jones finds the cutback lane. A.J. Dillon's as excited about it as what Aaron Jones is.
Ball sitting at the 12. Look at these numbers. 57 yards against Washington, 148 on the ground against Arizona. Pass caught. St. Brown. And a flag at the end as you see the official throw it out there on the edge. Rodgers says it's against the Cardinals.
Personal foul, unnecessary roughness. Defense number 7. After distance from the goal line, 1st down, Green Bay.
See what happened at the end.
And it's Byron Murphy, number 7. He's not in the screen just yet.
Yeah, he was getting washed out behind the play. It's not on this. It's about 5 yards behind that. Right there. And they're saying illegal use of the helmet by Byron Murphy on that helmet-to-helmet hit. Good call.
That is a good call.
On Randall Cobb.
Yep.
1st and goal. Pass inside, broken up. And a flag on the play. Wilson defending against Randall Cobb.
Pass interference. Defense number 20. Foul occurred in the end zone. The ball is placed at the 1-yard line. First down.
That was Equinemius St. Brown. And they are calling pass interference on Marco Wilson in the end zone.
What's interesting is Rodgers initially had DeGuara to the flat right now. And normally you would take that. But he's got so much trust in Randall Cobb that he passes up an open guy to try to come back inside to Cobb. And he draws the flag instead.
First and goal. Jones is no signal yet. Touchdown. Touchdown Green Bay, and that might be a dagger drive for the Packers against the undefeated Cardinals. What a drive. And the Packer fans that showed up here tonight are having a blast.
I think the Cardinals defensively are stunned. You know, that they're out there on the field facing this offense that's short-handed and depleted. And they've got to come up with a stop. Their offense has just gone down and done something to cut the game. And they go 75 yards to make this a two-possession game.
The Packers 3 possessions this half, 3 touchdowns as it stands now, as they make sure that Aaron Jones got in. And that's going to have to be pieced together. The call is touchdown. And for the most part in 2021, Walt Anderson and company, they're sticking with a call on the field, and then unless they see something clear cut. I mean, his backside's down and then he crosses the goal line, but I don't know that there's anything definitive to say when both events occur. So we'll see. It was a first down carry, by the way. So if he's short, it's second and goal from just outside the end zone.
Yeah, and if you're saying, hey, we can hold them out, then that's a different conversation. But otherwise, if you're Arizona, let them score now. Otherwise, they're going to take more time off the clock. They're going to run it down. You're going to have less time with it being a two-possession game. But, hey, we came into the game talking about how good this defense has been, but the Achilles heel had been their run defense. Even though the last 2 weeks they had held up well. They played well against Cleveland. They played well against Houston.
After review, the runner was down short of the goal line. It'll be second down and goal. Please reset the game clock to 4:44. Thank you.
But it'll be second down and goal from just outside the end zone as they overturn that call on the field.
Yeah, so the clock should start. They should wind the clock. And there it goes. And I would think, Aaron, I would think he'd let this get down and take as much time off of it as he can.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I'm with you. I'm not so sure the Cardinals benefit from that unless they can hold him out of the end zone. Back they go. Jones. They keep him out here. No doubt about that one. And it's third down and goal.
Third down and goal, and I've just got to believe, based on what I've seen here tonight, that they're not going to be settling for a field goal if they don't make it here on third down either. That they've got 2 more downs to gain 1 yard.
Can Arizona keep the Packers out? Can the Packers add to this 3-point lead? Remember, they're out of timeouts.
Yeah, they better get it snapped.
And they don't get it snapped. Boy.
Play of game. Offense. 5-yard penalty. Third down.
Well, that one's hard to explain. He does have young guys trying to figure out where to line up, and that cost him 5 yards.
Yeah.
And now that overturn of the call looks really big.
Yeah, it looks genius now. But, yeah, you explained it perfectly, Joe. They've got guys in there that just are confused. And Rodgers, not wanting to rush it, decides that he's going to take the penalty instead and try to get everybody lined up properly.
They're still trying to get lined up. Third down and goal. Rodgers sneaks through. And he's short. Back to the goal line, but short where it's fourth down.
Rodgers does everything he can to get this across the goal line. He puts his head down, and he's going to do it, and is just short.
Their first of the half. Be a 30-second timeout.
Cardinals use a timeout now.
So now the ball's back to where it was before they took the delay of game penalty. Only it's fourth down.
So they saw enough visual evidence to overturn the touchdown call. We haven't seen that a lot in the early going of 2021. But then a stop on second down, the delay of game. Rodgers kept out of the end zone, fourth and goal, and LaFleur says, let's go.
I like what I've seen from this offensive line, and I like what I've seen from Aaron Jones. I'd hand it off to 33.
Rodgers keeps, flips, it's batted down, and a stop, Devon Kennard. And it remains a 3-point game with under 3.5 to go.
Well, he's just trying to post him up. It's Randall Cobb. He's turning around. He's trying to put the defender on his back and be across the line. Kennard gets his hand on it. I'm not certain that even if he doesn't get his hand on it, that he's going to be able to make a play. I mean, it would have been tight. Byron Murphy is in coverage on Cobb, but it's a moot point. Kennard comes up and makes a play to give his team a chance.
Down by 3 now, 2 timeouts. Starting inside their own 1. A handoff, and just able to get it out of the end zone is Edmonds, as Tyler Lancaster is there for Green Bay.
He was there. He was there when Edmonds was still in the end zone. So the fact that Edmonds is even able to get it out of the end zone is really impressive. Look where the contact is made there by Lancaster. That's great individual effort by Edmonds.
That keeps Arizona alive for the moment. 2nd and 10. Pass incomplete as Kirk fell down. And he limps back to the huddle.
Well, the corner's soft, and so Murray's just thinking that he's going to stay out there and run a hitch route, which is what he should have done. I'm not sure where he's going. If he just turns around and stops, instead he's coming underneath, and Murray, you know, you got to remember, he's got big bodies back in his face. He's not able to run around back here where he is, and so instead he's not able to, he doesn't have clean line of sight. Murray doesn't. Now they got Hopkins in the game now at the bottom of the screen.
On 3rd and 10. Murray, pass wide open, caught out across the 20. A.J. Green. 23 yards when they needed him most.
There's just nobody there. I mean, nobody in the middle of the field. Murray floats it. Pass is caught.
And just like that, with Christian Kirk on the catch, they're right at the outer edge of field goal range for Prater.
Well, this time there's two guys out there. On the previous play, there was nobody there. This time there's two guys that Kyler Murray's got to kind of thread the ball between, and he's able to do it. So you're backed up, and you're just fighting for your life, and now all of a sudden you're at midfield. And you've still got a lot of time and 2 timeouts.
Well, they've got one of the best field goal kickers on the planet in Matt Prater. They have loftier ambitions than the game-tying field goal. Obviously want to score a touchdown and win it. But Prater, 62 career field goals made, 50 or more yards, most in NFL history. And they're right on the outer edge of his career long, but there's 2 minutes left. 2 timeouts for Arizona, and they've got first down.
Those are 2 big-time plays by Kyler Murray. On the first one, in order to pick up the first down, he was great protection, and he didn't rush it. He took his time knowing that he was protected and is able to get the ball down the field to a wide-open receiver. That last one, he just lays it perfectly. Hopkins back on the sidelines for Arizona.
2 minutes left, 2 timeouts, first down. And they were late getting out of the huddle. Just get it away. Pass is caught by Moore. Makes a move. Tackled in bounds at the 38. Gain of 9.
Yeah, you kind of see why they like the ball in his hands,
yeah.
Right? I mean, the moves that he's able to make. Look at that! Look at that right there. He gets Stokes completely turned around.
Pass is caught. And out of bounds rolls Christian Kirk with a first down and a gain of 6.
Yeah, that was close because that almost kept the clock running. You know, a better throw is a little bit easier, but he does a really good job of catching that. Still plenty of time, but just buys them a little more time to where they don't have to feel quite so rushed or use the timeout.
Typically, the Packer fans would be making a lot of noise. I think they're stunned. They had a touchdown taken away. Here's a high snap. And Murray able to get back on it near the 40. And the Cardinals want to gather themselves here. They use one of their 2 timeouts. And the reaction by Aaron Rodgers as he watched Kyler Murray get back on top of the football. Well, the last time the Packers had it, the call on the field was touchdown. They evidently saw enough, and we'll go to Mike Pereira here in a moment, to take the points off the board. They got a delay of game call, no timeouts left, and then that play by Kennard. Mike, were you surprised they took the touchdown away?
I was, Joe. I'll tell you, when we looked at it, we felt he was probably short, but we did not feel there was enough video evidence to say that that was the case. So I was surprised.
2nd and 18 after that high snap from Harlow making his first start. Catch made. Edmonds still rolling down inside the 20. 23 yards for Chase Edmonds.
Chase Edmonds just helps out his quarterback. I mean, Kyler Murray, he's in a little bit of danger in the pocket, and then he finds him, and then off to the races he goes. He's able to split the defense.
It's first down. Henry Black was injured on that play, so that they look at him.
Here's that last play to Edmonds as Murray's able to buy himself a little bit of time, and just how quick Edmonds is once he gets the ball in his hands. That's hard. It's hard for the opposing quarterback when you're over there on the sidelines hoping your defense can make a stop. But right now, Aaron Rodgers knows that he's at least looking at overtime.
A drive that started just inside their own 1. Kyler Murray, 3 completions of 20 or more on this drive.
There's on DeAndre Hopkins.
Murray's going to go. Stutter step. Out of bounds.
Murray didn't spend any time looking down the field. He saw a crease and man, he just took it.
They marked him out of bounds short of the first down. 2nd and less than 1.
It's that same look they showed earlier. They threw it right out to the wide receiver.
Murray keeps and goes down right at the line of scrimmage. He's still short. Oh, they're signaling first down. He looks to be short. But they signaled first down. We're going to take another look at that. First and goal. Edmonds takes it down inside the 5. Might have been a moot point, but that was a pretty early first down call. Arizona with 14 seconds left uses their final timeout.
Yeah, you thought that they would have at least taken a look upstairs to confirm it.
Edmonds gets the first down, now 2nd and goal. And Murray's limping around. No timeouts left on the scoreboard, and Murray doesn't look good. Let's see what happened at the end of this play. Second down and goal. High snap again. End zone and picked off. Intercepted by Rasul Douglas. And the Packers are going to win it. A.J. Green was the target, and he never looked for the ball.
No, he didn't. Not only did he not look, it looked like he was almost blocking out there. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what A.J. was doing at all. Everyone else, you see Kyler Murray on the ground. But here's a look at it. I don't know that. I'm not sure exactly what happened with A.J. Green, if he just saw the way that Douglas was playing him, that the ball was going elsewhere or what. But what a play by Rasul Douglas.
His first interception, and Aaron Rodgers can celebrate as the Green Bay Packers have knocked off the Arizona Cardinals and handed the Cardinals their first loss of the year.
Pretty incredible, this game. That one's kind of hard to understand, because if you look at the other side of the field, I mean, they're running routes expecting the ball, and that's a hard one for me to even try to explain as to what possibly could be going through A.J. Green's mind.
Boy, Rasul Douglas really playing well. Kyler Murray limps off the field as this just collapsed for Arizona here at the end of an impressive drive after keeping Green Bay out of their end zone. They go down the field, and Rasul Douglas has one of the biggest plays of his career. One snap, and it's over. Packers win it 24-21.
Well, Aaron Rodgers is over there on the sidelines. He's hoping that they'll at least go into overtime and that Arizona won't win it. Instead, he's taking the ball and kneeling down to end the game.
A masterful job